We're ready. Okay. The parsha tonight is Chayei, which is an interesting parsha, and it's actually a parsha that we've never discussed over the last 2 years. So it's kind of a neat thing to actually take some time to talk about this particular parsha. In this Torah portion, it's literally the life of Sarah is what Chayei means, but it's actually talking about the occurrences that take place after her death. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Why is it called the life of Sarah when it's talking about things that have happened after she's passed away? So let's talk about. I think we covered our introductory prayer in our Shabbat opening, so we can comfortably go into the lesson then. But on your notes, there's something that I didn't put in there, and for some reason I don't know why I left it out, but it was actually chapter 23, verse 1 in your Torah that is the opening verse for this parasha. That it says, and the life of Sarah was 127 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. So we read, okay, well, she was 127 years old. And then the next verse says, and she died. So, okay, she was 127 years old. These were the years of Sarah. So what does that mean? Let's take a look at a couple of words in the beginning of this particular verse. The first word in this verse is veyecheyu. Veyecheyu, that literally means and was. Okay? And was. The interesting thing about this word is that it literally says and began. And began. Okay? So, and began the life. The word for life in this verse is Chayei. Chayei. But the root of it is yehi, that means to exist. So, something in this is the beginning of existence. The beginning of existence. And it's interesting that it says all the years of her life were 127. Anybody recall how old she was when she gave birth to Isaac?
85, wasn't she?
90.
90.
90. So, 37.
No dating.
I can't imagine.
37. Okay? 37 is the numerical value of this word. What's interesting is we write 37 like this, which tells us what? If Lamed means instruction, and Zion is a representation of the protection, the nourishment, and the rest that we receive from the Word, then what is the beginning of our existence? Are going to the Word to learn.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I got lost here for a minute. 127 is when she left.
Okay.
90 is when she gave birth.
If you take 90 away
From
from
that,
127,
37, and that is the
those are
that
the
right
years that she lived after she had who?
Isaac.
Isaac, which means joy. That was the next point. Happiness. So she began her existence. Her joy came into being when? When she understood that her nourishment, her protection comes from the Word. And it's not necessarily Sarah, okay? If we say Torah means instruction and it's teaching us something, then what is it teaching us? That our life begins our joy begins when we yield ourselves to the instruction that comes from the Word, and we allow ourselves to be protected by it, nourished by it, and we find our rest in it. Okay? So that's something that I didn't put in the notes, because for some reason I wasn't thinking about it at that particular time. I just, you get here and you read it and say, wow, why does it say that? So, anyway, now that we can come to the notes, normally I would begin the beginning of this parsha at the beginning. That makes sense, and we just did, so it kind of blows the first line of this little handout out of the water. But the last part of the parsha is what holds a vital lesson for us. Now, we've read in the parsha that Sarah has died at the age of 127 years of age, which is an interesting period of time. In this time period, we find a question to ask ourselves in our lives right now. And the question is a two-part question. The first question that we find in this number, 127, the first part of the question is, am I set apart to Yahweh Elohim, receiving my blessing from Him? Am I protected and nourished by Him? And do I find my rest in Him? Okay? Now, if we say, am I set apart to Yahweh Elohim? Let's take that a little deeper in our idea. If we say that Yahuwah, the name of our Elohim, means to exist, it means eternal, but it also means everything there is, everything there was, everything there will be. I said, am I set apart in everything to my Elohim? It also means everything that was, will be, and is. So, am I set apart today, yesterday, and tomorrow to my Elohim? If I can answer those questions, then I have to understand too that in the word Elohim, we say Elohim, God as a word doesn't mean anything. It's simply a word for a deity. There's a lot of gods. Elohim, well, there's a lot of Elohim, but He is El Shaddai. He is El Elyon. He is the Elohim Most High, the Almighty Elohim. And in this we understand that He is our Mighty One. It's one of the definitions of Elohim. Judge is a definition of Elohim. Ruler is a definition of Elohim. And we've said that Ayil, ram, is a root. Terebinth is also a root. So these allude to rest and redemption. So in Elohim, we get more than an idea of this little God thing that we take out of the box and put up on the shelf. And Elohim, we understand it means our mighty judge who has the authority to bring us redemption, deliverance from whatever it is that we get ourselves into, and rest. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow, and everything there is, everything there was, and everything there will be. So when I say, am I set apart to Yahweh Elohim, receiving my blessing from Him? Am I protected and nourished by Him? And do I find my rest in Him? Part two of this question, because everything is a choice, so the other side of the question here is, have I allowed myself to become separated from my Elohim? Have I become distant and lacking in His blessing, in His protection, His nourishment, and His rest? Well, how do you get that question out of 127? So let's take a look at 100 equals what? Kaf. That means to set apart or to separate. Now, the interesting thing about Kaf is that it's made up of the letter Vav, sixth letter of the alphabet that represents you and I, humanity, and it's covered by the Kaf, the letter that represents blessing. So, am I set apart to the blessing, or am I separated from the blessing? Okay? Which we wouldn't really need all that fancy schmancy stuff because the next number equals kaf, which represents blessing. The first time we see kaf as the root of a word in Torah is in kanaf, that means to extend out and to come back in. It represents the blessings that go out and the blessings that go in, potential blessings and actual blessings. And then, of course, we have 7 that represents what? Well, that's it. Okay, we'll do it backwards. 7 that represents the Zion. It's the 7th letter. So in 7, we find the 7th day is rest. Zion means weapon, so it gives us an idea of protection. And the root of Zion is Zan, which means nourishment. We call the Zion the crowned Vav because in Torah it has 3 crownets. The Vav represents humankind. Then the Zion is the crowned Vav that represents the Word that became flesh, from whom we receive our blessings from Yahweh Elohim. We go to the Father through His Word Yahshua. Okay? So this is where we get the idea in 127 that we have 2 questions that we have to ask. Yes?
I don't mean to.
That's okay.
No. I don't know if they have an easy time down there seeing.
Can you see this
all
all
right?
right?
You might need to move.
Right.
But I don't know if that's going to mess
There.
up the camera.
I just moved that away.
I'm sorry. I just saw her trying to do
Okay.
this, and I want you to be able to see it. Anyway,
All right.
I'm sorry.
So we have 2 questions right off the bat from just the number that we get in this. Now, we jumped ahead. We find this number 127 in kind of an unrelated story, but we find a similar question in Esther 1:1 that we read that Ahasuerus reigned over 127 provinces.
Wow.
Now, we've just looked at 127 to mean all this. What does Ahasuerus mean? The name Ahasuerus means I will be silent and poor. Yet he was a ruler. Okay? So our question here is simply this. Has my reign as the ruler of my life made me silent and poor to where I have fallen away from Yahweh Elohim and His blessings? Now, we're going to discuss this a little bit more in depth because we start thinking about how subtle the serpent was, that we think that we're okay. But we ask, are we? So, the question we just asked, so let's take a look at our Torah portion. If we consider the story in chapter 23 when Sarah has died, Abraham has lived according to the word of Yahweh Elohim and has been exceedingly faithful, not even withholding Isaac. And we know about the whole Isaac thing, that Elohim says, hey, you like Isaac. You saw that? He's a great guy, I like him too. So take him up there and put him on a pile of wood and offer him up to me. So Abraham doesn't flinch. He takes him, puts him up there, does his thing. He's about to run him through. The messenger of Elohim says, hey, no, that's okay. April Fools, So, at the end of chapter 22, we read about the prosperity of Abraham, of Abraham's relatives, or relative Nahor, that his wife and his concubines have given birth to numerous children's, hanging around the grandkids too much, giving birth to numerous children. This family that is still firmly rooted in idolatry, but is prospering, while Abraham that has been willing to give up the thing dearest to him, is about to lose his soulmate Sarah. And then we come into chapter 23, and it says that Sarah has died. So we say, isn't that typical? We do everything in line with the word of Yahweh our Elohim, and it appears that everyone around us, those who have made anything to do with all of that God stuff a sideline, or those who simply do not seek Yahweh Elohim in accordance to his will, these people begin to prosper, or they get all the breaks. So let's consider verse 2 from chapter 23 in Bereshit. That says, and Sarah died in Kiriath Arba. The same is Hebron. I don't know why they didn't say, well, she died in Hebron instead of, that mouth exercise. In the land of Canaan. Now here's the verse, or the phrase that we're going to look at. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. That's what we're going to concentrate on. So let's consider this phrase. Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. The word for come is bo, that actually means to enter into. It also means to attain and to be introduced. So consider this question. Are we really that close in our relationship with Yahweh Elohim when we are paying attention to the blessings that others that we consider unworthy are being blessed more than we are? Do we consider the blessings of those that we consider unworthy more than we are to our own relationship with Yahweh Elohim? Did that make any sense? Do we look at others that we consider that really aren't that in a bag of potato chips and say, why are they prospering and I'm not? Okay? So, perhaps we need to consider, and then we start to break this word down, that within this word, which is actually, if I can get my doodad here, Vaye, bo, Vaye, bo. And we got it all, I've got it all, yay. Okay. We need to consider our carnal side. First of all, in this word Vayavo, we have the Vav again. It's talking about our carnal side. Our carnal side is what gets in the way. When we judge somebody, what are we doing? Well, we're breaking the sixth commandment. This is something that we have to understand. When we judge somebody, it's like we're committing murder. We're not in the judging business. We're in the, I love you, and I'm going to take you up before Elohim and let Elohim have his will and his way. Say, Elohim, this is what I see. I love them. If you will, do whatever you do. But I don't say, I'll look at them. They're just all haughty and idolaters and all this. So our carnal side gets in the way of what? To consider our carnal side and seek the truth, power, and the ability of Yahweh Elohim to help us re-enter into the house. Okay? So we need to pay attention to this carnal side that gets in the way. We need to go back, make teshuvah, and seek. There's the yod, which represents the truth, power, and ability of Elohim to help us to re-enter into the house. There's the beit that represents house of Yahweh. We say the aleph represents Elohim. The first time we see the aleph as a root of a word in Torah is in the word, Elohim. It's gematria if we break it down. It's 2 yods and a vav is 26, which is the same as the name Yahweh. So the question here is, am I judging? And if I am judging, I need to come to the realization and make teshuvah and seek the truth, power, and ability of Yahweh Elohim to bring me back into his presence. Because what happens when I start to stray to the car